So another thing I wanted to touch upon is still with power. There's been a new law affecting the trucking industry, where trucks registered on or after January 1st of this year must have zero emissions. And I spoke with a few farmers that have been affected by this. And they told me they were forced to sell their perfectly working gas-powered vehicles at below market value to states like Nevada, Arizona, Colorado that don't have these policies, or even Mexico. And they were required to purchase these very expensive electric vehicles, which led them to have extremely high costs, and which led to their inability to repair it themselves, because there are large companies like Deere that have monopolies.
Yeah.
That have monopolies on the repairs. So these farmers have been extremely negatively affected by this trucking policy. What do you say to them? They obviously do believe there's climate change, they're affected by droughts, but this specific trucking policy really did have a negative impact on their business. A lot of those, small truckers went out of business. They had to be rehired by these large companies. And it's very difficult to see that. It's very difficult to speak with these people and see how their lives are being ruined.
No, I sympathize.
Yeah.
I sympathize completely, and that is not a policy that I'm that familiar with in terms of the trucks. But I think this is another example of what we were talking about earlier. That if we're going to, look, there's no doubt in my mind that having polluting trucks, both in terms of greenhouse gases and in terms of air pollution, continuing to operate, that is a bad thing that needs to be changed. So the question then becomes, in changing it, how do you change it so that you provide people with enough time to adjust to it? And also, in addition, how do you make up for the losses that people are going to suffer?
Yeah.
So I don't know enough about the anecdotes that you've been given to comment on that. But it's an argument that you also hear from gas workers.
Yeah, that's true. And last session, Gavin Newsom also proposed a bill which would make the State Department of Water Resources the state's central purchaser of power, because the water supply is a major generator of electricity and major purchaser, citing the need to construct or acquire enough non-polluting generation to meet the state's goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2045. So it would centralize control of our energy sources, which in my opinion would lead to increased prices and stifled competition, which is not great.
No, I don't think that's what that does. It just empowered the Department of Water Resources to purchase power, but it cannot centralize the power purchase in WDR. You've got power purchases. It's actually it's a fairly fragmented landscape, because you've got the IOUs that we talked about, and then you've got the POUs, and they're all purchasing power. So I think empowering DWR to buy power for its own purposes, it is fine, but it doesn't mean that all of a sudden now you've got a monopoly over power purchases.